Studying for an MBA in Spain, and why not? Spain has established itself as one of the top countries to go to business school. You've got world-class schools, an incredible culture, the best weather. There's a tradition of diversity, inclusion, and of course, the start of very successful international careers. And to be able to capture and share that experience, I'm delighted to welcome Caroline Westberg. Caro is studying her MBA at IE Business School in Madrid. She had originally studied international studies at the University of South Carolina and a pre-MBA career around sustainability, innovation, entrepreneurship. All of that will play out. She's also a Terra Climate Fellow and a Fulbright grantee. And she's joined by Sascha James. Sascha did his MBA at the EADA Business School in Barcelona, having studied business at the Telford School at the University of Ottawa. He had 6 very successful careers at the Royal Bank of Canada and is now focusing on business connectivity and network diversity. So thank you, both of us, for joining. Caroline, perhaps just a brief introduction and the personal journey that then led you to IE.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Hampshire in the States. I decided to go to school in South Carolina, so big culture change. And I've always kind of loved change and putting myself in environments that are a little bit more uncomfortable for me. I studied international relations in undergrad, and during that experience, I did a gap year and did a national service program called AmeriCorps. And then I also studied abroad in Brussels, where I was able to actually intern with the Fulbright Commission there. So that's how I discovered Fulbright and grew a love for international cultural exchange. And when I graduated, I went off to work in Nestle, a massive company, and learned a lot in that experience and realized that I thrive in more fast-paced startup environments. So pivoted my career to working in food tech startups, actually a Canadian startup called Ritual based out of Toronto, if you're familiar with Sascha. And I was helping them with expansion throughout the East Coast in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and then was able to move to the Pacific Northwest. And I had always loved the West Coast culture, and I am a big outdoor fan, so moved to Seattle and held a variety of roles. As you know, in startups, you wear a lot of hats. In Ritual, where I was doing operations and growth, account management, and eventually went on to go work for a ghost kitchen company based out of Silicon Valley. And there I became a product manager. So I grew a love of working with technology and innovation. It was a very small and scrappy team. And I've been working, in the food space, food technology, this interesting intersection between restaurants and craft and cuisine and technology, and loved that environment. And coming to IE, I had always thought about getting an MBA. I think it was something that was on my bucket list of life to-dos, but I think ultimately for me, it was sort of this perfect recipe of having a school with a focus on entrepreneurship, but also with the ability to concentrate on sustainability. I had always worked on sustainability outside of my professional environment and did projects with local climate startups. I was very active in the climate meetup community in Seattle. Just did a lot of volunteering throughout my life. And so I wanted to pivot full time into working within the intersection between climate change, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And IE is really the perfect recipe for that. And also it being based in Spain, experiencing climate change, maybe at a more rapid pace, I would say, than some places in the US at least. I wanted to learn how they're adapting to climate change here in Europe, especially with the regulatory environment, and be around an incredibly diverse student body from all over the world.
Well, already I mentioned the great weather. We didn't mention the great food, but you talk about the business school being a recipe that brings those ingredients together and voices of experience in the classroom. Now, of course, Sascha, the Royal Bank of Canada is now trying to get its head around tariffs and the experience that you can bring to global supply chains and international business. So tell us a little bit about your own background that led you to EADA.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and raised in the nation's capital of Ottawa. and kind of followed through with my three generational of going to the University of Ottawa. And it honestly just happened to be the case. It wasn't quite on purpose, but still was proud to continue the family tradition and being a GG. And went to the Telfer School of Management, as you mentioned. And honestly, after graduation, when I had my diploma in hand, told my family, I'm done with education. I'm going to follow through with kind of my career here on out. And I had started working at the bank right after my first year of university, starting as kind of a teller, a client advisor, as it's called in RBC, making my way right after to a financial advisor. And then after a couple years post graduation, making my way to an assistant branch manager. Now, after about a year and a bit in the assistant branch manager role, I wanted something more. I wanted something else. That had been originally my goal to achieve that management position, and yet I wanted something else. And kind of as we've mentioned, weather being a huge thing, and especially when we're filming this in February, and I'm having calls with my family that are meters deep in snow. There was no better choice than Spain. And I also hold a French passport, so making my way to the EU makes it all the that much simpler. Now I had thought about going to France. Not only would it be easier because my mother tongue is actually French, but then I thought, you know what? I've already made a kind of easier choice staying within my bubble, going to the University of Ottawa. Let me really burst that and do something a little bit different. I knew a little bit of Spanish, enough to maybe order a cerveza or two. But nothing to be conversational or definitely at a fluent level, and not where I'm at now. But I thought, why don't I go for it? I've always wanted to live by the beach, and so I started looking at universities within Barcelona. And then specifically, EADA I fancied their sustainability focus. Since I've been a boy, I've always been watching, everything Planet Earth, David Attenborough, et cetera, et cetera. And so to be able to combine my formal education with my passion of sustainability was something that I definitely wanted to couple together. And so, yeah, that was more or less how I stumbled upon EADA. Upon graduation, started my career now at Advantage Communications, which is working with some of the world's largest multinationals for everything connectivity. Did I know a thing beyond, what was my internet Wi-Fi at home? No. And so that was another kind of big shift. However, it was definitely something that allowed me to not only stay in Barcelona, but grow personally and professionally.
Well, let me stay with the theme, Sasha, of big shifts and a leap of faith, because you mentioned, third generation going to school at the University of Ottawa. Do you feel that then the decision to go back to studies, but with all that you'd said to your parents a few years ago, it's very intentional. Were you conscious, if I'm going to go back to business school, I really am very clear about what I now want to pursue?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I did have a specialization in management, but having that real life experience definitely made that desire grow. And I do eventually want to go back to a managerial position. And I thought, I wanted a change in my life, not only in terms of location, but also of career. As much as I did enjoy my time at RBC, I did want to move away from finance and to just see if there was anything else that interested me beyond that. And so I made the conscious decision of, how can I couple again that desire of sustainability, that passion of sustainability with my existing passion and desire for management. And it doesn't hurt to even, review and grow upon some of the things that I learned at university. Although, the first few classes like fundamental accounting, etc., was things that I had reviewed. it was maybe 5, 6 years ago. So although I remembered the overall ideas behind it, did I remember exactly what EADA stood for, et cetera, et cetera? No. And so that really did kind of change that. Now, moving away from my family and being the first one to leave North America was something that was very difficult. Some hard conversations with my family on kind of what's that communication pattern going to look like? What's life away from being essentially a car ride away to now being a flight away is completely different. But they supported me. They knew that I was serious in my desire of doing this. And in all honesty, I said, you know what? I might just leave for a year, do my year MBA, and come back. And well, a year and a bit later, still in Barcelona, still enjoying life here. So sorry, mom and dad.
Yeah, that you'll have a hard time ever explaining that you've got this great career that you're building and not just spending all of your time at the beach. Now, Caroline, you talked about college, heading to South Carolina for studies and then the West Coast, Seattle and Silicon Valley. So why Spain? Again, intentional to broaden and gain that international dimension?
hmm Yeah, Spain was very intentional for me as well. I looked at a lot of the US institutions and schools, and they're incredible and have had many friends who've gone through the MBA programs in the States. But I really wanted to be in the most diverse environment possible. And IE has, our student body is almost 95% international. And so just getting the classroom full of different perspectives from all over the world, especially when you think about sustainability and climate change, how places all over the world are. Sorry, one second, I'm getting a call. Are we back?
You're back, but you flipped
I flipped.
sideways.
Okay, sorry, we might have to do that one again. Thanks to the editors here. Hang on, there we go. We're back. So yeah, no, I wanted to be in a really diverse learning environment. And also I learned French growing up. I never learned Spanish. I hadn't even taken a Spanish class before coming to Madrid. I was a digital nomad for about 6 months before coming to Madrid in South and Central America. So learned Spanish just by full force of just forcing myself into that environment. And then I mean, you can't beat the weather. Coming from Seattle, where it's, rainy all winter, and then the vitamin D intake is giving me life every day. And I think it was the sweet spot between the location, being in Europe, wanting a different experience, and the program itself really drew me to IE. I think like the focus on entrepreneurship, the small classroom environment, the diversity of the student body, and then the university is doing a lot on the sustainability front too. So I think, yeah, all of that combined made it a really good fit for me when I was thinking about MBAs.
Yeah, you talk about diversity and 95% international student body. Your impressions of classmates, very supportive, very collaborative?
I would say, yeah, that was actually one surprise I had coming to get my MBA. I maybe expected it to be a bit more cutthroat, but incredibly collaborative. And yes, there's definitely some competition, but I would say the structure of the classroom environment and the perspectives and maybe the way that the university is, yeah, structured the learning space, it's actually a lot more collaborative. And they're very team focused. You get assigned a team and you're with that team for the entire term. So it's almost like a real working environment where you have to learn how to navigate different working styles and personalities and strengths, and evolve with your team over time. So it's very much conducive to, I would say, a more collaborative environment than competitive or cutthroat. And that appeals to me, I think, a lot in the way that I operate.
Right. The same experience for you, Sasha, and perhaps everybody then bringing, you'd mentioned having, accounting and finance background. So that's something that you can then bring and share with other classmates. Is everyone pooling that knowledge?
Of course, that was, if anything, what stood out to me the most between my undergraduate experience and my MBA experience was not only kind of like what Carol was saying, the international aspect of it all, but also the backgrounds. Like we had some individuals that were coming from, a psychology background point of view, some people more from, within the world of business, the supply chain, accounting, management, so on and so forth. And that's what made the KC aspect all the more interesting. When you had the diversity of thought, not only from culture and from where they were from, but also from their actual professional background. We had some cases that were focused, kind of on the pharmaceutical side of things. And so the individuals with that background were able to share firsthand experiences. We had a couple which had to do with Canada. So obviously, I was raising my hand a little bit more that class to be able to share my personal experience. And, for the Europeans in the class, being able to share that, okay, although this might be normal or acceptable in wherever you're from in the world, here, at least specifically in Spain, our one or two people that were Spanish were able to share, this is maybe why in the streets or whenever you're out and about, it doesn't quite resonate the same way. And so it really helped to share and to understand a more cross-cultural aspect of business and understanding how, okay, for those who had experience in the Middle East, not working, like your weekends are different, right? Their work week is typically from like Sunday to Thursday. And so to not expect and to not have the same kind of weekend patterns was one adaptation that they had. And I never even knew or realized that not everybody was following kind of that, Monday to Friday schedule. And so not only did it help with, again, that case study methodology, being able to share their own experiences from their own personal culture, but also from actually having potentially hands-on experience with the company that we were assessing as well.
Right. In terms of the learning experience, the adjustment from whether it's a branch or an office of a major bank, and suddenly you're a student again. What's the course load like? Because you're also fitting a lot in to one very intensive year.
Yes, there is a lot. And when you kind of, I guess, zoom out and think about it after the fact as to how much you've learned, it really is amazing. Now, I will say that I was used to working something along the lines of 9, 10 hour days. And so going back to that student lifestyle where I'm only structured in the classroom between 3 to 6 hours a day, and then the rest of my time is up to me to prepare as I wanted to, absolute breath of fresh air. I missed that lifestyle big time. I missed the flexibility, the ability to take in that sunlight as we've already mentioned, and using then my evening hours to be able to finish up and prepare for the next day's class, tests, so on and so forth. And so the flexibility of time was something that I had really missed, and actually something that then I looked for when looking for my new opportunity. I wanted kind of that hybrid slash remote working environment, having worked kind of fully in a branch for a number of years. I didn't want to go back to that. Now, obviously, if it was what it was, if that was the best opportunity for me, but luckily enough, I'm able to find something hybrid, and I'm absolutely loving it entirely. Beyond that, being able to balance my workload with my colleagues and my team. So we were consistently set up in pods, and so being able to share the workload equitably within us was something that I also really, really enjoyed, which wasn't the same in my experience at work. Whatever was my job had to get done, and it was mainly having to be done by me. And so, in that aspect, it was definitely wonderful to go back to school. Now, yes, was it strange at first and almost like, oh, I feel like a little boy again? Sure. However, it was definitely something that I've enjoyed.
When we talk about that fluidity, Caro, everything that you learn in the classroom, but presumably the learning opportunities beyond the classroom, whether it's a company presentation or different networking events. Tell us about life beyond the classroom and also how different student clubs and the culture contributes to the personal and professional development.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge advocate of learning beyond the classroom. I have loved a lot of my classes and I've learned I think it's crazy to think about how much information I've consumed in the last 6 months. But no, I got very involved on campus pretty much immediately when I got here. And the university has so many opportunities to get involved, not just, I guess, within the boundaries of the university, but also in Madrid. I think it's important for me to stay connected to the queer community, to stay connected to the climate tech community. And so upon coming here, I sort of did a listening and exploratory tour to figure out where I wanted to invest my time over the course of my experience in Madrid. And so I got really involved with the IE Out and Allies Club and became an officer for that. And we're planning one of the biggest flagship queer LGBTQ work conferences coming up around Pride. So that's been an amazing opportunity to network, but also to really spotlight a lot of what queer leaders are doing in the workplace. And then on sort of my sustainability, climate change passion, that's truly been a thread, I think, throughout a lot of the things that I've done here at IE. And have gotten really involved with the various organizations on campus, but also I'll be doing an internship with the IE Center for Climate Change, building out a climate incubator, which was a project or an idea, I guess, I had that really aligned with a lot of the things that the university is doing. So maybe flexing some of the entrepreneurial skills and applying actually a lot of what I'm learning in my classes around building a P&L. Like I had never done that before. How can I do that when building out an incubator? How can we talk about climate change and money, financing, funding, VC, and connecting students to resources and mentorship? So I think figuring out ways to, I find I learn by doing. I'm definitely like, I need to be practicing what I'm learning in order for me to retain that knowledge. So I try and find ways to apply what I'm learning in the classroom to a lot of the things that I really care about outside of the classroom.
Does that also extend, Caro, to career? I mean, did you feel, well, it's a one-year program, I need to know what I'm going to be doing next after the MBA before I start, or is there this tremendous opportunity to explore?
I think what's interesting about the one-year program is that, so yes, I had a pretty strong sense of the general space I wanted to work in before coming in. However, the university did provide a lot of resources, support, frameworks, mental models to be thinking about how you want to either pivot your career after you graduate. There's a career accelerator where we meet every couple of weeks to both explore opportunities, but also work on our CVs and interviewing skills and things like that. So a lot of students, it's pretty diverse in terms of people coming in and knowing exactly what they want to do versus they're like, I know I want to change, but I don't exactly know what that's going to look like. And you figure it out. And I think what's amazing is that you actually have, because it's such a diverse student body culturally, but as Sascha mentioned, you have people coming from law backgrounds, doctors, like psychologists, like they're coming from all different backgrounds. So your frame of reference and your worldview changes while you're here. So you may know exactly what you want to do, but then you're exposed so much to what other opportunities there are, both internationally, but also thinking about how do you apply that back home if you want to return to the States. So I personally have sort of known what I've been wanting to do, but what that looks like in reality and in a tangible way, that's actually evolved a lot since I've been exposed to what exists in Europe and out in the world.
Right. Sascha, you mentioned having found your sweet spot, sort of the more flexible hybrid style of working. As you worked with the Career Management Center at EADA, how do they hold up a mirror to think about, where you will perform and both be successful, but also, be very happy?
Yeah, I think one aspect that I found very useful that EADA offered within their kind of career mentorship program was actually connecting you with a coach. And this was obviously a voluntary aspect, which I decided to opt into because I was more so of that kind of blank canvas, other than non-finance. I was open to, any kind of other career advancement. And so I wanted help or support on kind of narrowing down what that might be. And so on a cadence that was appropriate to A, your desires, B, your capabilities, and C, kind of both calendars, we set up a kind of monthly cadence to be able to walk through, okay, you've just finished, a blitz on marketing. What are your thoughts on actually going into marketing? And I was able to talk through it with somebody who had kind of that career experience, who had that personal experience, and who had coached many other MBAs previously. And so it was really nice to just be able to kind of talk through this process with someone who had that kind of formalized mindset and ability to help me through the process. And so that's what really stuck out and helped me. There were others of my colleagues in the classroom that worked kind of more closely with the recruiters at EADA, who were able to actually get connected right away to specific either individuals or other recruitment individuals at the end organization. And so I do think that, there's a multitude of different avenues that EADA offers to be able to help you find the best aspect. And so specifically going back to the coaching, I was able to, talk through, okay, having done in the office for years, I'm really enjoying this flexibility of only being kind of in the classroom for on average 3 hours a day, and being able to do my work at home. I'm really enjoying that. Yes, there are some days that I was in the library, head down, preparing for a test, but on average, I would be going back home to complete my work. And so she was like, okay, well, have you ever thought of really going hybrid? And I was like, well, I've seen it on Instagram or on TikTok, but like, I don't know, that seems crazy to me having been in the office. And so we kind of walked or talked through what that would look like, what that would feel, and essentially got me to making that a priority when looking for new opportunities.
So as you packed your suitcase in Ottawa, said goodbye to family, it might just be a year, I'll be back, and look what happened next. Um, Something perhaps that surprised you, even something that you learned about yourself through the business school experience, what would that be?
Yeah, I think one aspect is we're kind of stronger than we might give ourselves credit for. So, after wiping away all the tears in the airport and saying the goodbyes, and kind of settling into my new place, getting to know a little bit more my neighborhood and obviously my walk to school, etc. It only took 2 months for me to realize, like, you know what? Yes, it is hard not being so close to my family that I do hold dear, but at the same time, I'm absolutely loving this experience. I'm loving this new culture. I'm loving being able to take it a step slower. I find in kind of North America, it's a lot of go, 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 next thing. And I'm really appreciating, and I continue to, having a lunch that might take longer than an hour, or, longer than 30 minutes in your car, quickly finishing up your lunch before going back to your desk. So, although it was scary and was difficult, the aspect of being able to empower myself to make a decision that's right for me, was something that the school helped. And one aspect that I don't think we've touched on too much, but for me, I really felt as though the people in my classroom became kind of my home away from home. We were a super supportive group. We were very close to one another, frequently doing things together. As a large rule, we had all come more or less alone or without knowing too many people in the city. And so it really did become kind of our family. Our class was our family. And so I do think that, having kept most of these relationships going, even well beyond a year after graduation, has made its point and its impact on me, that I can also lean on other people, beyond, kind of the friends from home and family, and shows that, yeah, even though it might be scary and even though it might be difficult to make this decision, you're stronger than you think, and you should be able to kind of back yourself in making this kind of tough decision.
Yeah, a family home from home. I often wonder, Caro, if i.e., business school sits high in the rankings that often look at, of course, post-MBA salary, career advancement, but are there intangibles that rankings miss? That community that Sascha describes, perhaps even things of self-confidence that you see developing in yourself through the MBA experience.
Yeah, I think maybe two of the most impactful pieces for me have, I think, to reiterate what Sasha said, is the people. I've talked to a lot of MBA students about what is it sort of that has been a standout experience for you, and it always is the people. You graduate and you always think about the people. And you build lifelong relationships truly with the people that you're with. I mean, you're with them every single day. You're going through this when you think about it, we have a slightly older demographic. You have to have a certain number of years of work experience. So it's typically people aged 28 to 35. And you're going back to school, but you're an adult and you've experienced life. But yet you're able to build these like incredibly close friendships very quickly because you're all going through the same life experience. And then on top of that, add the professional background that they all have. You build this like deep network where going into the future, no matter what, even if we didn't spend a lot of time together as MBA students, I can always call someone up if I'm in Tokyo. I have now 5 friends that live in Tokyo, and I can say, hey, let's grab a drink and like show me your city. And I can get it from a local's perspective. And I think so the people really stood out to me. And then my background was in liberal arts. I never took a business class before coming to get an MBA. Working in startups, you're just learning by drinking through the fire hose. It's just like everything is, you're learning by doing. So for me, I felt like the language that I was learning, the business language, actually has given me so much more confidence. And in fact, I went home for the holidays back to the States, and my parents commented on it. They've said, you're speaking so much differently than you spoke before you started this, because I'm just thinking about things differently and I can articulate myself and business problems and ideas so much better because I just have language to tie to it. So no matter what path you take after, you can always adapt to whatever the industry is, as long as you can speak this common business language that I think the MBA gives you those skills. And it's maybe a soft skill. It may not be like crunching numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, but you at least I relate and identify with anyone now in the workforce. And I guess as a woman, I always felt a little bit like I've always wanted a seat at the table, but the imposter syndrome often kicked in due to the lack of language and understanding what people were talking about. And I feel so much more confident now sitting in a room, maybe full of men or full of senior stakeholders, and being able to converse with them eloquently about business problems. And so, I think that was a really strong guiding factor for me throughout this experience and will stick with me forever, truly.
I think both of you with so much insight and being incredibly articulate about your experiences. In a sense, you've already answered my last question with that energy and enthusiasm. But our viewers, perhaps where you were a year or two ago, thinking about next steps and where they would look to study. So just final thoughts, Sascha, your advice to anyone that's considering an MBA and perhaps considering Spain.
No, I think honestly, if I can speak from my own perspective, it's that it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It might not end up being right for you. I can't make any promises, but everybody in my class agrees with me. So at least the odds are in your favor that it will be the right thing to do. Um, I think you're going to walk away with friends for a lifetime. You're going to walk away with new knowledge, depending on even if you had that business background or not. You're going to walk away with a new sense of cultural appreciation, and just a whole gamut of different positive aspects. Is it scary? Is it kind of difficult to think about leaving home, wherever that might be, to be able to accomplish this goal? I think so, and it sure was for me. But it's well worth the pain, the angst, the anxiety, everything that came before it. Looking back at it, it was some of the best years of my life. I've made friends for life. I have new experiences that I never thought I would be able to ever have. I live in a city that I absolutely love, that I'm now calling home for the foreseeable future. I was able to find a great opportunity career-wise that I couldn't be happier about, that I would have never ever imagined to find myself in before. And so, you just kind of got to take that leap of faith, and jump right into it. And so, to me and all of my MBA colleagues, we had nothing but great things to say about our experience. And so, I really hope that you guys will be able to follow suit and have a great experience also.
Well, much like Sascha, Caro, you've taken that big step. Your reflections and advice to others?
Yeah, maybe three takeaways as we learn at the end of every MBA class. Always walk away with three takeaways. I would say first is be patient. I think the application process may take a while, visa may take a while, learning the language may take a while, but I think learning a sense of patience that things will fall into place is something that I've really learned because I tend to be a bit of an impatient person. Two is take the time to reflect and really, it's such a transformational experience. Like really take a step back and appreciate, the process that you're going through, but reflect and find, this maybe sounds cheesy, but really find your why. I think that helps you as you're going throughout the experience to stay true to your core. You're going to have a lot of people going on very different paths from you. And that can be overwhelming when you have people going in different directions and they care about different things, they prioritize different things, but knowing what is sort of your North Star or guiding each of your decisions helps you prioritize in maybe an overwhelming environment. And three is just a shout out to Spain. Like, best country. I mean, genuinely, it's a beautiful country with so much culture. It's so much more diverse than I expected. I mean, Barcelona, Madrid, yes, but the cultural diversity in every single city you go to, and it's accessible. You can go all over the country, and there's so much nature that people don't talk about. I had no idea you could hike every weekend. Like, the language, the warmth of the community. Like, I think Spain is just such an incredible place to get your MBA, but never mind, maybe live and really like understand and fall in love with the culture. So those are my three little takeaways. And yeah, highly recommend doing an MBA in Spain because it was, like Sascha said, I think one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Well, my sincere thanks to both of you. We always hope with Centrecourt that we can go beyond websites and data to capture that such a personal perspective that both of you share with extraordinary enthusiasm and insight. So, Sascha, Caro, thanks for a great session together.